Test. Test.
Me, mo, mo, me, mo, mo, mo.
Test.
Ah. Oh, here they come around the bend. Here it comes, your Triple Crown winner.
What the hell's wrong? I just like to scream at everybody as soon as we start the show.
We're here. I'm so excited. There's a Triple Crown winner. American Pharoah wins a Triple Crown. First time in 37 years.
I think it's more important to introduce our special guest, Macky Poo.
Macky Powers. What do you got to say
Damn
for
it,
yourself?
guys, this is Mack Powers. Coming down at the waist.
I don't know who you're referring to, Macky Poo, but
But we're glad you're here.
we're glad
Macky
you're
Poo.
here to talk
Enlighten
current events
us.
with us
And medicine.
in medicine.
Because you're
and
Dr.
even-
Macky Poo.
This is a veteran. Are you considered a veteran now?
Why are
served.
you so red?
I am.
Yeah.
Why are you so red? You're not like being called Macky Poo?
I'm just really turned on.
We're here with a real live veteran here to talk military and medicine this week and all the other bullshit that's been going on. So let's start off with Red China, right? They're hacking our computers all of a sudden.
Why do you
right?
have to call him Red China?
I'm just trying to fearmonger. Should I call them Yellow China? Is that more politically correct?
I like slant-eyed China.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
No.
And hold for
I guess their flag is red, so... Do they call themselves Red China?
I don't think so. They probably have other words that I can't.
What do they call
People's
themselves?
Republic of China.
Yeah,
We are the people.
It's a republic.
it's a republic,
It's
I
respectable.
suppose. I guess.
It's probably more of a republic than we are.
Yeah, well, I think the anniversary of that tank photo was recently posted on the internet.
You mean in Tiananmen Square?
Tiananmen Square, that was a big moment. I do reflect back on that moment. I'm like, good for that guy to stand up to the tank. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, we need more of that today
I'm
sometimes.
surprised they didn't just run him over.
Well, that was the cool thing. They didn't run him over.
Yeah.
There was like a human element to it. Just like, oh, people are actually human when you get down to it.
Some.
Some, yeah, I don't know.
Some people burn people alive.
That's true. We got ISIS out
And they
there.
film it from several angles while they do it.
Well, they were just programmed from when, they were younger to think that communism was like the thing, So,
That's true.
It obviously didn't work, but I mean, it's a good ideal, so I could see how people would almost drive over someone with a tank if they were programmed to do so.
Oh, programming. Eh? This is coming from a guy in the military. Were you programmed?
Would you drive over someone? Would you
No.
drive over someone in a tank?
No, but I took a oath to the Constitution, which shows that I
I
do
think-
such things.
I think we know he won't drive over things because you swerved out of the way of that little critter in high school and risked your life in your car.
Good for you, Macky Poo.
Hey, it was a fierce groundhog, okay? I feared for my life. I thought that it was more likely that if I flipped my car...
It bared its feet.
Shows your character that you will do whatever you need to save a life.
Thank
That's
you.
respectable.
Thank
Yeah, good for you,
Mack
But-
Powers.
Mack Powers. Well, since I brought it up and we're kind of, shooting from the hip, there are people out there who are like, oh man, people in the military are freaking brainwashed, man. What would you say in response to a comment, maybe an ignorant comment like that?
You mean like the one you're using right now?
I like to speak in, what's it called? What's the word when you're filling someone else's shoes? What's that called? I'm drunk.
Devil's advocate.
Devil's
or
advocate
third
or-
person,
Yeah.
unbiased.
Answer the question.
Yeah, answer the damn
You're
question,
trying
Macky Poo.
to not answer
I'm
the
evading.
question. Yes.
Well, I can't lie. They definitely train you to follow orders. They definitely train you to not question when it's not reasonable to do so. But you're not supposed to follow an unlawful order. So, I mean, there's definitely safeguards in the training for the United States. I don't know if it always will be or have been effective, but you take an oath to the Constitution. You don't take an oath to the president. You take, you train to, live up to an ideal. You don't train to, follow and no matter what's told to you. Like you're always taught to question but obey unless it's unlawful. Like it's very clear in the training.
Were you around any people that were like really pro-war?
I'd have to say there was some of that. I mean, I was with people primarily who were in the medical profession, so they might not have been as hawkish as people on the line side. But there were definitely some people some flyers that I maybe had as patients that maybe were a little bit more hawkish, turn place the glass sort of thing.
Was it like MASH?
It was exactly like it.
Oh man!
No.
How many? I can't say that. I was gonna say how many nurses did you bang? He's a married man, everybody.
So none.
Well, except for the one that I'm married to.
Oh right. Good for you.
Anyway, so I guess to answer your question, I trained in a MASH type situation. It's called EMEDS. It's Emergency Medical Expeditionary something or other. But basically, you train to build tents in a quick manner, and then be able to give world-class care even in an austere environment. And that was probably one of the coolest training environments that I was in, operationally. No, the coolest one I did was when I was parasailing over the Bay of Pensacola, and I just released and floated down and had to do cool stuff and then survival stuff. That was fun.
That's awesome. Did you fly jets or ride in jets? I keep forgetting.
I didn't. I rode in jets.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was no. So I can talk about it. It's not classified or anything. So there's, most of my time.
You just get shot tomorrow.
It's all our fault.
Mackie
Boo! No.
No, but I did a lot of my time.
Mackie Poo.
I did a lot of my time on JSTARS aircraft, which are intelligence aircraft, and then I spent a lot of my time on KC-135, which are refuelers. They're actually going to replace that airframe in probably the next 10, 20 years. So. So it was cool. I got to see a lot of cool stuff that did a lot of secret stuff, but I really, didn't. I was just there to, be a crew member.
In case shit went down and they needed some stitches.
That, but it was also so that I could be a better physician for them because I understood the occupational stressors and the mission riggers and all that stuff. So that's really why flight surgeons, are part of missions, just so you can better understand what the hell you're talking about.
Did they give you a gun when you were on your mission? Or did they give you a pistol?
Had I been deployed somewhere that service members carried guns to, I would have carried a gun. I would have carried a sidearm as an officer.
So you did the shooting training and everything, right?
Yeah, I qualified on the M9.
That's cool.
This might be crazy.
Bring it a pause moment, because I'm going to ask you about what you think about the China hack and the China island thing, because that kind of got started last night.
I was kind of worried I was hacked.
What?
Because the first reports were of formerly government employees being hacked. And
Oh, right.
It didn't come out later until it didn't include military members. I was like, fuck. I mean, I really didn't have anything super important in my email, but I was like, damn it. I'm pretty sure I did some correspondence about personal stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they say it's the biggest hack in U.S. military history, which is pretty
You
important.
wonder if they tell you about every hack.
That's true, too.
I also wonder if it's awfully convenient that we pinpoint the origin of these hacks so quickly and put them up in the mass media very quickly.
Well, for me, if we get into conspiracy corner early, it's just we had the whole NSA Patriot Act thing, and then we got the U.S. Freedom Act that replaced it earlier in the week, and then on Thursday it's we got hacked by China, we gotta go back. It's almost like we need to have this Orwellian thing in place, or China's gonna hack us.
I read somewhere that so the legislation that they signed into law that they're supposed to stop wiretapping and collecting all that information. At the same time, it's possible that they also signed an extension allowing them to continue in the FIFA courts. Is it FISA or FISA? FISA, sorry. FIFA, no, FISA.
FIFA's
not
a whole
FIFA.
other thing.
FIFA. Yeah, the FISA courts that basically allow them to continue doing it. So while they acted like we're gonna sign this law so they don't do it, we're like, but behind closed doors we're gonna
do it.
Yeah, we're still gonna do it.
My defense, even though I'm kind of with Rodney on this, is just maybe the people higher up know more than we do, so they're like, you can sue us, we need this to happen, because they know what could go down. So then I'm like, my trust in Obama keeps getting less and less as we get longer and longer into this, but at the same time I'm like, he's still a smart guy, I trust him a little bit, but at the same time I don't like this NSA shit at all.
I think it goes. I just really think it goes back with him to what I was saying before. Is that I just think he has great plans, but he just is not consistent in his execution. And so, if he really wanted to scale back, how we use the NSA, he's the damn president of the United States. He could do so with an executive order. I'm sure some kind of weird legalese, and then it could get backed by Congress eventually. But He doesn't. He does the status quo 9 times out of 10, and he talks like he wants to do stuff. And,
Yeah.
And I really like his ideals. It's why
He
I
says
voted for
one
him.
thing and does another a lot of the time.
I know, and it's usually that he says that he wants to do
Like he
things.
said he was going to go after Wall Street. Didn't go after Wall Street at all.
No.
Yeah, I haven't
said
heard
we
much
were
about
gonna,
that.
Said we were going to get out of these wars. We're not out of these wars. Like said he was going to get away from insurance company and healthcare. No, he gave insurance companies more customers.
He empowered them too.
Yeah, he did.
Give more customers.
So like, and everyone's like, oh, but he gave us healthcare. It's like, well, he did the opposite of what he said he was going to do with that, though. Like, he's taxing young people, and he's always saying how he's there for young people in the middle class, and a lot of his policies, he's supporting this trade deal that seems like it's not going to help the middle class and bring jobs to this country.
That's
like all of
the
these
thing
things-
lately is the NSA and the trade deal. I'm like, Brock, hey, I voted for you, you asshole. What the fuck are you doing?
I feel like they all do this. I mean, the Bush administration did a lot of shitty stuff, and then this administration's doing a lot of the same shitty stuff.
But
These were different colored ties.
yeah, when it comes to some of the things he did, I feel like he compromised a lot, especially with the healthcare, because he knew, like, my rose-colored glasses look at what he did with the healthcare thing was like, I want to do this, but my Congress is only going to give me this. But if I settle for this, it'll set the path to get where I wish we could go. And he probably understood it's a very long process, because democracy usually is a long, drawn-out process. Change doesn't happen overnight in a democracy that we have.
I mean, but change in healthcare could happen overnight. Like, literally, people can get in shape very quickly. Like, we could literally change healthcare in this country in a year. People just get fucking healthy and start taking care of themselves. Literally, it would change in less than a year. You'd lose a lot of healthcare jobs, but those are jobs that we don't need anymore because people are healthy. You'd lose a lot of pharmaceutical jobs because we wouldn't need to take so many pharmaceuticals because people would be healthier. But
Well, I
They
think
don't do
you,
that.
I think you definitely have people that stayed healthy longer. I think by the problem with so much obesity and overweightness and smokingness and all thisness that we
Not drinking, whiskey and Wi-Fi. Send us whiskey. We're drinking, what is this, Crown Royal this week?
Crown
anyway,
Reserve.
you're making a good point. Thank you, Crown Royal.
Damn it!
It wasn't the whiskey's fault. That is for sure.
What was I saying?
you're saying so people can get healthier, obesity,
Oh, yeah, so-
the obesities.
So I think we could at least, if people did these horrible risk factors that are controllable less, you would definitely have people getting these diseases 10, 20 years later or not at all. For instance, like people that have a family history of acquired diabetes, type 2 diabetes, they might still get that, but they get it when they're 50 or 60, not when they're 35.
Yeah.
Because they're not 500 pounds, eating out every night at Denny's. And
Stop looking at me, Mac and Pooh. Can we go to Denny's after this? Is that what you're
I
suggesting?
haven't been to Denny's in a long time.
Yeah, every time I eat at Denny's, I'm like, this is good. And then like 6 hours later, I'm like, what did I do?
Denny's is gonna send us a cease and desist now.
Crown Royal and Denny's, perfect match. It'll keep you regular.
Is that BYOB? Did you just go there with a bottle of Crown?
I mean, they don't have to know. You can bring like a little bottle of soda.
Your little flasks that
Yeah,
are so
you've
cool
done
from
that.
recent
Yeah.
weddings.
Aren't a lot of places like technically BYOB? It's just that they might not let you actually.
There's a place down in Glen Rock I love. It's a little pizza shop. It's like a mom and pop shop. They make really good pizza. They're now bring your own BYOB. Legitimately.
What's it called?
Mignano Brothers.
And it's like the best pizza in New York.
I like it. I think it's really good.
You
I
drive
can't
the
say
whole way
it's
to
the best.
Glen Rock just for pizza?
Well, my sister used to work down there, so we used to meet down there.
Okay.
But now she doesn't. But now I'm like, we should go down there one of these days.
Is it better than Dover Gimenina's?
I want to say yes.
Because Dover Gimenina's wins best pizza in New York pretty consistently.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I don't usually eat pizza there. I usually get the other stuff.
Sandwiches and stuff.
Now, are you eating there when you've been drinking whiskey? No, I need to understand the lens with which you're viewing this place.
Well, see.
I'll take that as a yes.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, is it considered drinking?
Pause.
Is it considered drinking whiskey when you wake up drunk from the night before?
If you were drinking whiskey the night before.
Okay, I'm like, then yes. But
That's when the hangover sweats bleed into the meat sweats.
the meat sweats,
The cheese sweats.
sweat all day, sweat out the toxins, keep it regular.
We had a point in all this, didn't we? I don't know what
We were talking about healthcare.
We're talking about people getting fat,
Yes.
not eating fast food, and they're like, oh, fast food, cheese.
We see it because we've been
It's
programmed.
subliminal, yeah, man. It's like you talk about it. It's like I want it now. right? We talked about subliminal messaging yesterday a little bit. That was kind of crazy stuff. Not really subliminal messaging, it's just the fact that you get shown these images and stuff and it's just like too hard to wash out of your mind sometimes.
Well, what I think that I was getting at when we were, out last night was that I think, no matter where you are, what you're doing, you're always, exposed to either TV or your phone or the internet or all the above at the same time because you can access all the above on all of those mediums.
Oh, right.
Or media. And I think that, I think it's unhealthy, from a mental health standpoint, but I also think that it definitely takes out a lot of the thought process. Like it takes out a lot of the processing power that you had. It's all pre-digested for you.
Yeah.
And then it's just a passive thing like everything else in this culture.
Which is kind of scary. And you made a point about everyone staying in more than going out lately. And you made...
Mostly because that's what I do, and I generalize to everyone else.
Well, yeah.
I think that's definitely happening.
I think it's definitely happening, and I felt like recently it's...
People also have less money to do stuff, and TV is a very
true.
cheap and easy way of entertaining yourself.
Yeah. But I get... It gets old for me, so I'm like, I need to go outside and look at something that doesn't glow. The glowing it hurts my eyes after a while. If you work in front of a computer for all day too, and then you come home and you're looking at another screen, it's just like my eyes literally hurt.
Yeah, I don't want to just look at the screen.
Yeah, but you raised the question that kind of set us off. It's like, oh, is it planned? I don't think it's necessarily planned, but it's what you mentioned, which I thought was interesting, was capitalism kind of derives this kind of plan. It's like, oh, this is the best way to get people to pay money to us is by kind of just forcing them to like take the feed bag, if you will, and just like watch this and buy this and don't go outside.
I love that you say that's capitalism. Like, I would think it's. I mean, we don't even have capitalism right now.
Well, what Max said, and I'm kind of putting what he touched on. Maybe I'm putting words in his mouth. What I got from it was. When you're trying to maximize the dollar, it doesn't matter how you maximize the dollar if that's what you're serving. It's like, oh, if I can brainwash people to just stay on TV and not like get up to make myself richer, that's what you would do. And that's kind of a capitalist idea.
No, I mean I would disagree because capitalism's based on free will and choice, and customers make decisions. The only thing that you can't really vilify So why do you think companies are so bad?
I don't think they're bad.
Because all they can do is they can either give you a product.
They sometimes.
What allows them to abuse it is generally the government giving them unfair advantages over a regular market. If you let the market dictate everything and just actually have a free market in capitalism, then I don't think
there's a tipping point where that power gets kind of too heavy.
Isn't it always in check? It's always in check. When it's not in check, it's when the government gets involved.
Where I don't have a lot of faith in the people anymore. I guess maybe that's what it boils down to. Because I do feel like people are getting ignorant and kind of brainwashed and kind of asleep in this kind of weird wealth gap that we get. And I'm just like, what's happening right now? Like, why aren't people realizing that these people have too much power and not enough power? And I don't know, it's just a weird kind of concoction in my head that I haven't quite figured out. But that's where I am right now.
Well, I mean, I know the observation is certainly that I don't know what I would do with myself most weeknights if it wasn't for my TV and my computer or my phone. And I think it's really bad that, like, I take these little snippets. For instance, we were watching a video earlier. I won't get into because that'll sidebar ourselves once again. But we were watching a video, and before that point, I had only received the little sound bites or the little snippets from the news because it was pre-digested and it gave me the story, and then I moved on to the next thing because the screaming epidemic of ADHD is not necessarily because everyone would have ADHD or ADD. It's because we're conditioned to have it at this point. There's too many stimuli coming from different areas, and I think some of it's planned because it definitely keeps us buying things. It keeps us invested in maybe not capitalism, but the consumerism that we're all we're so consumed by.
Right. So I argue I like checks on capitalism because I think I like I said, I admitted it. I think I don't have faith in people. I want people who can take care of other people to put those checks in place for those people. That sounds kind of arrogant, I'll admit it. And I've admitted in past episodes, there's kind of like this left elitist kind of like, oh, we know better than you do. And maybe I fit
It's basically you say you don't like freedom. You don't want people to have free choice.
The argue. They have freedom of choice, but...
No, you don't have freedom of choice. You're saying, I think better than you do, so I want to limit your decision-making skills because I want to limit your choices to what I think
But if you see someone robbing somebody, you're going to say, that's illegal.
How are you... but no one's robbing anyone when you're in a capitalistic market. It's saying, here's a good or product. Do you want it or do you not want it? If you don't want it, don't buy it.
See, now I'm an idealist, but you're an idealist in the capitalist sense that you think pure capitalism is that way, but it's not that way in our world.
Why isn't it? Well, we don't live in that right now.
2008, that's why.
2008 is not. 2008 was hedged up by government. The Affordable Housing Act was what led to all that poor lending. Fannie and Freddie Mae were hedged up
took
banks.
Advantage of people who didn't understand what they
money
were
that came from the government. If the government wasn't just giving them, the government wasn't. That's the thing. Is people compare this fascist state we live into and say, see, capitalism doesn't work. No, fascism doesn't work. A banana republic doesn't work. That's why these things keep happening because the government keeps fucking around with markets and then letting the markets just fucking work. If the markets people wouldn't be getting those loans. People never would have gotten those loans if they wouldn't have had government-backed programs that were funneling the money to those banks to lend to people and continue to lower the credit ratings.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, and I like your idea of that kind of capitalism. I just don't think it exists today, so I feel like we need to push back.
It does. There's countries that are doing that, and they're the freest, and they have the largest booming economies right now. It's not the United States.
Yeah.
Wasn't some of it active though on the part of the corporations, the banks and such? I mean, I agree with you up to what you said.
We're gonna have to pause. Think about what you're gonna say.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, I took economics. Free market's good. I just think there should be checks.
Well, yeah, it's a question of where the checks kick in if they've gone way too far at this point, in certain regards, and then aren't going far enough in other regards.
I don't like to take freedoms away from people. I just don't trust business. I honestly just don't trust business people because of our last 20 years.
Yeah, and that's because you've had a pretty much crony capitalism. You've had the Fed lending money to people and bailing out everyone making bad decisions. You should let people go out of business. You shouldn't guarantee anything.
Well, yeah.
And let the market work.
That was the fun thing about going to the streets and meeting people back then in 2010. Because you would talk to people who were from the right and we're like, oh shit, we're protesting the same thing. Because it was such a weird thing to be like, oh, we should have let these people go out of business and we didn't.
That's the thing. It's like, I feel like a lot of people that don't like the collapse and stuff, it's just they don't understand what caused it and they're protesting the wrong things. It's like protest Washington. If Washington wasn't allowing those things to happen, they wouldn't happen.
Mm.
They couldn't do it. Like if a bank knew if it made a bunch of lousy bets it was going to go out of business, do you think they make the lousy bets?
No.
But if they know, well, we're going to keep getting all that free government money and they take all the risk and we don't get any of it, then they're just going to, it sucks. It's fucked up.
Should we wait or should we let Max go?
Well, I think all I really was going to comment on was just that, part of it was that it wasn't just that, clearly the mandate under the Affordable Housing Act kind of opened, Pandora's box. But I do think that there was some...
I do think
there was some willful destructiveness in packaging those loans the way they did in a deceitful way. And then,
well, the other thing was selling your bad bets or packaging them in the swaps or whatever they're called.
Securities.
Yeah.
Securities,
Who allowed them to do that?
So I think that there's one way. I think what you're presenting, Dan, was that the kind of the backdrop was set for companies to be in the situation when they passed the Affordable Housing Act, right? So that's they had the ability to loan to people that weren't good bets, right? Because people that had shitty credit, there's still that's my understanding of it, right? Like people that still had shitty credit were still entitled to home loans that they couldn't afford.
Well, pretty much they just kept lowering the standards so they could keep pumping out more loans and they could keep selling more houses and they could keep the housing bubble afloat.
And certainly that set the backdrop for it. But then I do think that part of what transpired before the 2008 collapse or fall of the housing market was that they were packaging them in a kind of a malicious way, that was maybe not intended to cause harm, but it certainly did. And then when shit hit the fan, people had their golden parachutes, and I think that's why there's so much outrage.
Well, but that's back to my previous point. If those companies if they made those decisions and decided to make those bad bets, would actually have to suffer the consequences of when all those people stop paying their mortgages, that they then go out of business, they never would have made those mortgage deals. Those deals never would have happened.
Yeah, it's kind of a perversion of what capitalism is to like say.
Well, it's not capitalism. Because
right.
capitalism, they would have gone out of business, and those banks wouldn't be here anymore.
So they got rid of the market pressure. Like there's no
reason to behave well. It's like the same thing with our healthcare system. There's no reason to take care of yourself. We're going to keep paying you to, be sick. Keep eating that fast food, and we'll just continue to fucking fix your heart.
We'll give you the triple bypass one.
See,
clog every artery.
I guess this is what I notice in my observation of the public, is because they'll see abuse, and they saw abuse before the Healthcare Act, where people who got cancer or something, they would get cut by their insurance company. I'm like, that's why you have insurance. So people got outraged. So that's like a swing to the left. And whether you agree or not, I think people have a short-term memory. They saw the crash in 2008, and they saw that was under a Republican president, and they blamed Republican ideals, maybe. And so they started swinging to the left. And maybe it's not good to go too far to the left and recognize what the real problem was, which was basically the corruption that's going on between maybe like who's setting the rules and whatnot. But in the healthcare thing, it's just like, yeah, they hear this shitty stories of people getting cut from insurance and like, we need protection. And then you cut out what you're talking about, the risk. And maybe that's too far to the left, and maybe there's a happy medium there, but...
Yeah, I mean, well, your point about insurance companies dropping people when they get sick, I mean, that's atrocious, and I
think people just like react and are like, we want universal health care because this is bullshit and we don't trust the people who are in charge.
Well, universal health care would make, at least that'd be a system with a coherent thought process. I mean, at least for all the bullshit that we say about bureaucracy, and I know you'll disagree with this, Rod, but...
Sorry, I just laughed because I'm like, you remember to call him Rod. Good job, Mackie Poo.
So at least it'd be a coherent system, and there'd be a plan to it. Like, I feel like half the problem is that government sticks their nose in just enough to fuck stuff up, and then...
So if they stick it all the way in, it's going to go better.
No.
So your assumption is when they stick their nose in a little bit or only half in and they're fucking it up, then when they're totally in, it will go better.
I think, yeah, because then there'd actually be complete oversight, there'd be a complete process in place that was coherent and centralized, versus if you're going to leave a process like, let's say, capitalism, because we are talking about that, or free capitalism is more appropriate, is in place, like...
What's free capitalism and capitalism?
Well, I just think I'm clarifying that I don't just mean like, capitalism is, companies, being companies. I mean like the free flow of things without regulatory bodies, without, SEC, without all that stuff, all the stuff I don't really know much about because I have no economics background. But what I'm saying is that market would be able to function the way it was intended, when people way back when with pitchforks envisioned it to. But I think it's been adulterated. I think that process has been adulterated, and I do think that, right now the medical care industry is adulterated because you have, federal interests, you have private interests, and then you have, what we're supposed to have, this impartial interest of the patient. That's all fucked up with like, oh, is your insurance going to cover that? Have you taken X, Y, and Z drugs so we can approve you for that? Do you have justification for being on that medication, or do you need that surgery? Well, the doctor said I needed it. Like the people that we rely on to save our lives said that I need it. Like, what do I need to produce? I need to fill out 5 forms. I need to, have this other procedure that doesn't work, or this other medication that doesn't work. Like, it's just a weird system where it's half in, half out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I'm just getting to that because I can come back to it because I've seen it, where, if you had one centralized entity that said, okay, we're going to create, a centralized healthcare industry, where we have this standardized set of rules that will apply, at least then it's consistent.
Consistency. So, but all right, so I'm going to flip it on you. If you had a totally capitalistic system and there was one healthcare provider that became the biggest and ran everything and put everyone else out of business, and then the barrier of entry to get into that market was set so high because you're the only one, that no other competitors were there, do you think they'd have set fair market prices, or do you think the prices would go up dramatically? Because what you're saying is you want a monopoly on an industry. All healthcare would come from one place. So you think that would cause pressure on price to go down? because that defies all logic.
I can't disagree with you on that.
Do you think you're going to get better care for a lower price with one provider rather than having choices
No.
and having competition and pressure to innovate? Where's the innovation come from when you have a single source?
There would be a downward pressure wherein there would be regulatory bodies and part of that, and they would say, no, this whole overarching scheme that we have, we're not going to pay for that. You're going to have to figure out how to make that cheaper because Congress has appointed X, Y, and Z people to decide, no, we're not going to pay for that.
Can you give me an example of a government body that's doing that now? Where that's showing, where there's a government body regulating something where they're driving costs out.
Well, I certainly think that an example in medicine would be the Medicare reimbursement rate.
Oh, because so they pay those bills lower so then everyone else has to pay higher bills. Because you know how that works, so there's different prices for different people. Those costs aren't driven out, it's just they pay less for that and everyone else gets paid more and they make it up on that.
Right, because it's a patchwork system. That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Well, how are you saying that's driving costs out? It's not driving costs
Well,
out,
if
it's
it
just
was-
hiding the costs.
Well, no, if it was all consistent and they had the actual power to govern what the reimbursement rates are, and actually that would be what these companies were getting paid, these healthcare companies.
But the government's the one that's shorting that bill. The free market's paying more, so that means you'd have lower cost, which actually means that you would make a lot less money.
That's true.
So you'd want the government to distort things and say, you can't make this much. We're telling you how much you're going to make. And you think more doctors and more innovation is going to be brought to a market where the government's controlling all of it. You think we'll get better care at better prices.
I think there'd be a better distribution of care. I personally can't say clearly.
Better distribution of care.
I can't say
for some people, some care is better than no care. And that's what, if people argue, some people were getting fucking left
People
out.
weren't getting no care. They were going to emergency rooms and getting care. It was expensive to do it that way.
And that
we
was
shouldn't
actually
do
costing us more money as a government, though.
Well, yeah, but that's why we should have people taking care of themselves.
Well,
People should
that's
have
still-
pressure to take care of themselves. That's what
Agreed.
the problem is. And also, the government relies on income, right? They need tax money. So the healthcare industry is one of the largest growing sectors where they're getting the most fucking money from. You think they're going to want to shrink that and they want actually people to get healthier? You think they actually want that to happen?
Some people.
It would hurt government for people to get healthier. It would actually shrink our economy. It would actually shrink their tax base. It would actually mean they have less money to do things.
So let me
if
ask you
people
this
got healthier.
question. Let me ask you this question. So I've wondered about this, and so you have an economics background that I don't have, but I think you have a little bit too because you have a little bit of a business background.
Minimal.
And so, if it feels like the medical, the medical profession, the healthcare profession as a whole, 4 trillion of our gross domestic product, some crazy number like that. That might be a bullshit number, but
Look up what percentage of our GDP is spending on healthcare. You can probably find that.
it's an absurd number.
Gotcha.
They've listed us against other countries here. In this one chart I'm looking at. Oh, no, it's alphabetical. I'm like, we're really low, but we're a U, so. We're like, holy shit, guys, we're in trouble. 17.1%.
Of all spending.
Oh, what I was gonna get at, it's a huge amount, but how much of that is actually generated, goodness for the economy? You know what I'm trying to say? That's something that the American economy pays into itself.
So would it be good to give people cancer so that you can create
Well, what I'm saying
opportunities
is-
for cancer companies to sell more drugs?
But I feel like that would happen more in a capitalist solution.
Well, no,
Because I don't trust the people who fucking run businesses versus the people who run the government. Because people still run our government.
So what I'm trying to
But
get at.
yeah, I don't want
Do you think people run our government, Derek?
to. Well, I don't, but that's
So
the
then what are you talking
ideal.
about? Well, that's what I mean. Then you're talking about something that's not real.
But you're talking about, like I said earlier in this episode, we both have ideals that just don't exist.
They do. I should have done more. I knew I was going there, I'd have a list of countries that are doing more of what I say, and I'd show their trends and
That's true.
blowing us out. Of the
Well, I mean, Canada and fucking Britain have perfectly fine healthcare. So anyway, go.
That's why they come here, because we have a lot more innovation.
Only the rich jerks.
Because we have more innovation and better technology, because we have a free market system that's developing those
Hey,
ideas.
you
Well,
gotta-
we
you
don't
gotta
anymore. We
compromise.
partially
If you
do.
don't want people to die in the street and just like, fuck off.
People
we're not
don't
gonna
die in the
get you
street.
healthcare.
People don't die in the street. Doctors just take care of people for free because it
But
didn't
now at
cost
least
so
we're
much.
getting people to pay for it with having this government-assisted.
We were paying for it
plan in
before.
place.
People weren't dying in the street. People need
are
to.
getting fucked.
What we're
over,
doing is
though.
basically.
Hospitals are getting fucked over more, right?
We were basically saying subsidizing poor decisions. We're saying rather than take the medicine and realizing you have to get healthier, you have to make better health choices because we can't afford
I mean,
to do
if
this.
people were
Can I
intelligent
finish?
human beings, they would do that without.
We are
someone-
intelligent human beings. We're subsidizing bad behavior. And you think that's going to make it
It's
better?
not that we're not intelligent, it's that we're lazy. I mean, all of us are inherently
So
pretty lazy.
subsidizing more laziness is going to make us better.
What I'm saying is that people do need extrinsic motivators in order to make good decisions, and it's just the way people are. Like, people aren't all intrinsically driven to do the right thing for the right reasons.
So there needs to be pain. There needs to be pain for change, and that's what we need. We need people to be in pain when they're unhealthy to a degree, because you need to make, when it's lifestyle decisions. I'm not saying when you have some weird illness or you have cancer and it's like you have a shitty hand, but when it's like you're fucking 600 pounds, like you're not gonna be 600 pounds anymore. We're gonna get you fucking healthy, and we can't. But
You were gonna say something before we cut you off.
Right, no, and I don't know that any of us are going to have anything good to say about it, but so when you think of, let me preface it. So you think of, let's say, the packaging industry. You're creating, stuff. So you're creating packaging, right? And you're marketing it and you're selling it to people. So you're actually creating a good that you're selling, and theoretically, you're selling to people also that are outside of our country, which inherently versus other countries builds our wealth, because we're giving something to someone in exchange. They're giving us currency, right? So my question is, with the medical healthcare profession, with healthcare goods, with all that stuff, most of that stuff is consumed within this country, I would think, most of it. I know we do export some of it, and that our, Merck and Pfizer and all that
yeah,
shit.
we use a lot because we're one of the most unhealthy countries in the world.
Right, but when they're generating revenue, are they really generating revenue, or they're cannibalizing our ability to actually spend on other stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're
That's
spending 17% of our GDP. That could be going to our infrastructure. It could be going to schools. It could be going to lots of other different things.
Reinvestment in business.
Exactly.
Right.
But no, it's like there's a business on people. We have as much as we have a military industrial complex, we also have a medical industrial complex. Like, they figured out that sick people make more money. When people are sick, our GDP is up higher. So do you want people to be healthy? You really think people want people to be healthy?
Well, I'm kind of going off here, but what I don't like about what potentially could happen is the pharmaceutical part of. We talked about this briefly yesterday about how if you get in a system where pharmaceuticals get cheaper, I feel like doctors have the motivation to prescribe things they shouldn't be prescribing. And I was talking about an example yesterday where like some guy was prescribed 7 medications that counteracted each other, and like that abuse seems more likely in a kind of unified health system. So for some reason, whatever you just said made me think about that. Now I'm like, where was I going?
Yeah, that's fucked up. I can't believe that happens.
But I think it's just because you said, like, you were arguing what does the system profit off of and what is it? And that's where I get back to my idealism, like, yes, doctors should get paid more than other people because they go to school and they do hard work that people can't do. But I hate the idea of profiting too much off of
That's
helping people.
Well, I mean, what distorts that is when you have a government just pumping money into it that people aren't actually paying for. Like, what sets the price? If people are willing to pay for that good or service. But when you distort that, like the same thing they're doing with the housing market, prices get distorted a lot. Costs go up. You pay for more regulation. You need to hire. It costs you more to hire more doctors because there's more red tape. There's more licenses. There's more and more shit, and so the cost goes up.
But that's the thing I liked about what Max was saying about the patchwork thing, is I feel like there's more red tape and waste in a system where it's kind of like two heads kind of working together instead of being like
There's whole billing,
streamlined.
there's whole coding and billing departments that, there's 5-10 people at a hospital, 20 people that just try to make it so that they can talk between the different insurance companies and Medicare and Medicaid, and it's just such a waste. Like, if it was very consistent and all computerized and all the things used the same codes and had all the same reimbursement rates, you wouldn't need a whole department. You need like one person that just watched all the things go flicker up to the.
Do you guys like Amazon? You guys like the website Amazon.com?
I'm fairly indifferent because I don't use it.
I know you're leading with this, but I love Amazon.
I don't have disposable income.
I just spent
you
like
can buy
$400
paper towels
on it.
off Amazon, have them delivered to your house.
I'm one of the very few that just, I don't use Amazon.
Well, like, you find it easy to use.
Yeah.
You find it's like
And it's not controlled by government.
do you find like you get good prices for the goods and the products that you're looking for?
Yeah.
And they're trying to get into services now, and provide services. That's like where competition has forced them to develop a platform where information is gathered, stored, collected, and very easy. I think I agree with you guys on the point where this distorted version of healthcare that we have right now is a mess and definitely not the right model. But I don't necessarily mean that that means that it should be all taken over by the government and controlled by a single entity. I don't think that's necessarily the right thinking. But I don't also admit that I have the solution either.
Yeah, my self-serving, just so we're clear, my self-serving side doesn't want a single payer system. I mean, I'll profit more in my career if it stays the fucking messed up shit that it is right now. But I do think that it's an incoherent system, and I do think there needs to be, as with everything else in this country, there needs to be someone steering the boat. Someone needs to say, okay, here's our plan to make healthcare cheaper. Here's our plan. And like, we have people right now in power, Barack Obama, who talks about it and then doesn't do shit, or makes a plan and then doesn't follow through on it. And I do think that we're just kind of like a rudderless ship right now in all aspects. We can bring up any amount of topics that we want tonight, and I do hope we move on to something, relevant, but I think that's the problem.
This is pretty relevant.
Yes, and it's good that we had someone who works in the industry to talk. We had we had an episode about healthcare. But at least now we have somebody who's like inside it, at least with some perspective that we don't have. But since you brought up Amazon, and it is later in the episode, I don't want to cut anybody off, but I want to bring up Silk Road because for some reason, this person provided a service that was streamlined and allowed anybody basically to sell whatever they wanted on his website. And then people started dealing drugs on his website.
Without a middleman.
Without a middleman. And then he got in trouble for it naturally. I think that would kind of happen. But the thing I didn't like is I felt they set an example out of him. They gave him life in prison for these drug charges. And
in the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the kid that went to Penn State. Look him up. He's like a normal
Silk Road.
You walk down the street, you wouldn't.
He seemed like a normal dude, and
give him life in prison for a drug offense.
Yeah, well, the other thing we talk about.
He doesn't even have any of the money, right? Like he's not rich.
He's not like
He's a normal guy. I think he lives with his parents, so he's like, I'm not the one selling the drugs.
Yeah, I made a website to make everybody like happy. It's like basically like another Craigslist, I think, except they sold drugs.
Well, they did a lot more than selling drugs, though. There are a lot of other things that websites is used for.
That's just what they're focused on. And the whole conspiracy corner, if you will, is that big business didn't like this competition, and like we need to make an example of them.
But the other crazy part is that I read that the DOJ is investigating some dirty cops from down in Baltimore that were caught hacking into people's profiles, using their usernames. They stole money and then were trying to get people killed and acting like other people stole the money, like some real fucked up shady shit.
Yeah, there's some stories out there that make you.
And some of that was the guy's defense apparently, and he wasn't allowed to use any of it because it was an ongoing investigation. They said you can't use any of that.
These were authorities or FBI or police? I'm sorry, I missed that. I was zoned out a little bit. So
it was police that were hacking into it reportedly.
I forget if it was just police officers or if they were DEA, but
I think it was also DEA.
Yeah.
But
we could doing
Google
it. Google
that shit.
GTS.
So I mean, I don't want to jump shark on this, but I really do think that the current in this country has been misplaced, and so we've been focusing a lot on, right now, honestly, I'll say what it is white versus black, Caucasian versus African American, what have you.
I think the media's just making that up.
And I think it's a misplaced anger. I think the anger is what powers that we give to, the generalization is, with the NSA, the CIA, what powers we've given higher, Big Brother, but also the powers that we've given to our local law enforcement agencies, and what's appropriate. And I think that you're seeing a great deal of variation between different law enforcement things, and I guess me being a little bit of a pro centralized federal government type of guy, maybe that should be standardized so that people aren't doing battle rolls or whatever through neighborhoods and tackling
You don't think it's already
teenagers.
standardized? I think the standardization is what is allowed to protect those people. The unionization and the fact that it's all of them, they stand up together. There's no competition for police forces. It's not like you can't fire your police force and get a new one.
I mean, so
they don't. Do you see them standing up? And they're just starting to do that. It's refreshing to see them starting to do, but it's taken a while. And I think it's the opposite of that is what has protected them. It's because it's been so standardized.
You know what I like that you said at the beginning of this episode? Because it's probably I'm sure it's the same oath that people take when they join the police forces. You serve the Constitution and people's rights, and sometimes like you mentioned in a past episode where it's like, when are cops going to be like, I'm not doing what you're telling me because this is bad.
That's what it feels like. It's almost like the Gestapo sometimes, because they're just following orders and not thinking about what they're like. That guy that was ripping that girl around, like that's assault of a child. Like,
Yeah, that was in McKinney, Texas, for the listener.
you shouldn't just be doing that. Like, are you thinking if you're breaking up a pool party and you're ripping a girl around by her ponytail? Like, do you realize what you're doing, sir?
Yeah,
Do you realize what you're
pulled a
doing?
gun on him.
Yeah, pointing a gun at little kids. Like, what the fuck is wrong
What
with you?
exactly were you charging her with when you whipped her around? Like, what was she posing an imminent threat to you or anyone else?
It was,
That you think
I
that you
think-
can do that?
What's the
She was
charge when
walking
you're
she was-
evading an officer or...
No, he told. That was the weird thing is he told her to go away, and she was walking away, and I guess she and her friends were kind of talking shit
They
about
were
the
talking
situation.
shit, yeah.
And he got pissed off about that, so he went and pulled her back, and then dragged her back to where he told her to leave. And it's like everything he did was stupid.
Yeah. Well, he resigned now.
He should probably be charged with assault, though.
I think that might still happen. Since
I don't
the
think-
public outrage is
I
out
don't think
there.
just because you're a cop, you should be able to break the laws and get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like the laws should hold up to. Like they charged that guy with murder down in where is that, South Carolina or North?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's sad to see any of that happening, but at least there's some consequences.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
you were making a bigger point. I feel like I missed it.
No, I think that it's all part of the same theme. You know, it's just that, you know, country right now, I think it may have been caused by 9/11, or it may just have been a general pendulum swing where we became a little bit more of a police state.
Oh man, it's like Homeland Security. Ever since
Yeah, but I mean, there's no denying that we created the Department of Homeland Security when we already had the FBI. You know, and we've tightened down, we've ratcheted down, and now I think we're in a period where we're evaluating how ratcheted down we really need to be and how effective it is to be ratcheted down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, it's the whole thing with the TSA with 95% porosity. What we're gonna do, tighten that down even more, like make it take 5 hours to get through security at the airport.
Yeah, that's really fucked up, too.
What's that quote? Like those willing to give up freedom for security.
Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah,
Benjamin Franklin,
deserve
yeah.
neither, and will get neither, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good quote.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
my computer died.
With what I just looked up was it was two cops, and on Forbes they do an article about these are the accused crooked Silk Road cops and their terrible front companies. So they're alleged to have worked for front companies, but it's just cops. It wasn't DEA. But I'll just add that.
Do they get charged? Is that still going on, that investigation, or do they get charged with something? Will they get life in jail? It seems like they should get life in jail if that other guy got. Because they were cops doing it.
Yeah,
But I guess they didn't make the website, so they won't. They'll
yeah, that
just,
pretty much go with the theme, wouldn't it? Like of them not getting their just desserts for being inappropriate.
and they were trying to get people to kill people, I think.
Yeah.
Like, like,
The one thing based on that too was
sorry.
Rikers Island, the kid who was jailed for 3 years in solitary confinement for part of it, killed himself this week, which is really sad news.
What
But
was
he never like had a trial. He
was
couldn't
he?
afford bail or whatever, and they just kept him in
What was he in jail for?
stealing a backpack.
Just stealing a backpack.
Yeah, our friends posted about it too. I only say that because I'm like, oh, he's paying attention to the story too, so I'm like, good. Our friends from DC.
That seems like a good reason to get put in solitary.
Well, the thing was, he couldn't pay post bond or bail or whatever it's called. Was it bond or bail?
Yeah, whatever.
I think
But-
they're used interchangeably.
Yeah.
So he went
Or a
to
bond is
jail.
used to pay bail.
Is that it? Yeah, you pay.
I should.
That's why you go to a
really
bond.
know that. Whiskey. But anyway, so he was put in jail, and these guards were very abusive, and he naturally fought back, which maybe he shouldn't have done, whatever. But so they put him in solitary for being kind of like feisty, and he said that solitary really fucked up his brain, and now he's 22 years old, and he's out of jail because it took him 3 years to figure this case out. And then he killed himself, and it's just like, oh, that happened in America. There's another thing where it's like, the guy who created this website for selling drugs or whatever you want to charge him with, it's just like, oh, he got life in prison. That's weird.
He's been in solitary for a while, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, bankers destroy the economy and run off with trillions of dollars. And the guy creates a website that allows people to trade things that they want to trade.
More freely and
Yeah, that it's, and basically takes more of the danger out of it. It's like,
Yeah, allowing him to function would be capitalism, and this is another example of getting back to what you were saying earlier, which is it's been screwed up because the government's like, hey, you can't have that free
We want you to have to go get it and
marketplace.
find it on the streets where it's more dangerous and you might get robbed or shot. We don't want it to
Yeah, it's
just have it
hard.
on the internet and get shipped using UPS and FedEx and the USPS.
We hate it being so trackable. we could use this as a law enforcement tool, but instead we're gonna shut you
Or
down.
just use it to tax. You're like, we're just going to tax you guys.
Those who surrender freedom for security will not have, nor do they deserve either one. Benjamin Franklin.
There you go.
Pretty awesome guy.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel.
One of his other quotes was, I think someone approached him and said, "What have you done for us?" Because they were all confused about the revolution. He's like, "I've given you a republic if you can keep it," which I liked because it's like you have to be active in a democracy to keep it in check.
Yeah.
And that's my frustration lately, because I see all shit and we read about it a lot in the last 6 months. I'm just like, fucking people, do something.
That's just because our parents and our grandparents have lived by these rules and these principles doesn't mean we have to. Just because they've made lots of bad decisions and have agreed to some of these Ponzi schemes doesn't mean we have to do the same thing. And I sometimes get nervous even talking about ideas like this, but it's like I really think the young people in this country have to stand up, and it's not like it needs to be violent or anything like that, but just stand up and come together and realize like, hey, we're going to change this, we're going to turn the ship. But I don't think you can just vote some of these changes. I think you literally need to stop.
Well, because when you're voting, I mean, there's so much money behind the people that are part of the status quo, part of the false dichotomy of Republican and Democrat, that when you're voting, you're not really voting for any kind of meaningful change. You're voting for rhetoric. You're not voting for people who are going to actually get in there. And if you do happen to have that choice in the rare district or whatever, that person is one person out of however many hundreds.
Yeah,
in
it's
the-
trouble actually.
Yeah. And so that's why I agree with you, like an alternative
If we
means.
just, but I mean, we're not going to do it until things get really painful. But I mean, if we just started, if a lot of young people just stop participating, I'm not talking about like standing up and you have to even do anything. If we just literally stopped participating, it would force people to like go, whoa, wait, because they need us.
I get that too, and then part of me goes back to it's like, well, we have the system in place. If we just, I mean, I don't know what I should look this up. The younger population, I don't know how we fare against the older population. Like, if we just all show up in elections, could we get like half of the Congress changed in like in 2016?
I think part of the problem is that like that dichotomy that Mack was talking about, where
I forgot his name. Mackie Poo.
Mack Powers.
Mack Powers.
that, I mean, I think we agree. Young people agree on like 95% of things, whether people call themselves liberal, independent, or conservative. That the vast majority of stuff we agree on, but we don't. Neither side gets those things because they like that argument. They like just keeping that argument going and acting like, oh, we can't get anything done because democracy's slow and we just don't agree on these things. Like, no, actually, most of us agree on most of this, and you guys just keep fucking.
Even Mac was commenting on this on my Facebook page. I was making a weird Facebook post, and it was just kind of this weird concoction of my frustration in the world today. Because people give up on the process, and I feel like it's a lie. It's like they want you to give up on the process. But I'm like, we agree on all this stuff. We just need to like vocalize it and put pressure on the right people. I don't know.
No, I don't disagree at all.
Yeah,
I just don't understand how we do that
that's true. I mean, that is difficult.
without.
Well, we've been way behind the eight ball, and so we've talked about, complacency. We've talked about how, we're content sitting in front of the TV, in front of the computer, and people are satisfied with that. Everyone's plugged into the consumerism. Everyone's plugged into complacency, and I don't, I think some of it is orchestrated. I think that is a mechanism of control. And I think it's going to keep many people, they're comfortable with that. Why would they get up and go to a protest? Why would they get up and try to affect change? Why would they become involved in politics? They're happy. They can put food on the table and they can watch TV and they can go to bed.
I mean, that's a fair point, and sometimes I get wrapped up to it in a point, I'm like, I should settle for that. But then I just feel like I see what other things are going on, and it's hard not to be like, this is happening, look over here, how can you not see this happening? This is a thing that's happening. But then I feel like Chicken Little at the same time. I'm just like, okay, maybe I need to calm down.
Until everything hits the fan because we've just not we've just not paid for our transgressions. Our heavy-handedness with the rest of the world, our poor spending habits, our poor debt management, our inability to have a coherent foreign policy or a coherent social policy. I don't know what else to say about it, actually.
We all feel depressed. Damn whiskey.
It's like, oh, everything sounds really bad.
Sorry, everyone. This is what happens when you have Mack Powers.
Mack Power coming through.
Yeah, because it seems like on a lot of things, Derrick and I find this, we don't necessarily always agree on the solution, but we agree that a lot of things are broken, and it's very obvious the parts that are broken to a degree.
I think so, yeah.
And I think a lot of times we even agree on the solutions, but
We agree on the common core solution. I feel like it's just those details that need to be fleshed out. And I feel like Congress could do that. But the thing about the last 6 years, or maybe the last 4 years more accurately, is the Congress was just so fucking blah, left, right, blah, blah. I'm just like, fucking do something. They literally did nothing the last 4 years. I'm like, you're
they spent
adults.
a lot. Actually, they have done a lot. They spent a lot of fucking money.
Well, they spent
They've spent a lot of fucking money. They've been
but
doing
for very little change, perhaps. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But it
yeah,
just
what good
seemed
has
like,
come out of all of that money being
But
spent?
yeah, I don't know.
The upper 1% of the world's done a lot better.
Son of a bitch.
And
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks for stopping by.
Whisky and Wi-Fi enjoys your listening.
I'm fully aroused.
Even and fully around.